Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're just waiting. There you go. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're going to begin with a little bit of music. The words of Shiru Ladonai, which you can find in your Siddur on page 13. But we sing a new song to God because it's Shabbat, a new beginning, a new opportunity for each one of us. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai, lai. Shiru Ladonai, shir chadash. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz, Shiru Ladonai baruchu shemo, Masru miyom leyom Yeshuato, Sapru bagoyim ke'evodo, Bechol ha'amim niflotav, Ki gadol Adonai, Umhulal me'od. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Yai nai 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 nai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai yai lai lai lai.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat so shalom. Nice to see you. So when Cantor, Lisa, and I we found out we were doing our service together, I said, I want all of the tunes to be clappable. I want them to be really up and exciting and invigorating, and so we hope you're going to have a very uplifting Shabbat this evening. And I just want to remind you, I'm sure you know this, but if anyone has their cell phone with them, please turn it off. Make sure it's turned off. And so then we're going to communicate in person, and please turn and wish people around you Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. To get our service started with some light, we're going to invite up our bat mitzvah, Shana, and her family to come help us bring in that light of Shabbat as we light our candles. And just in time, we have Miles, our bar mitzvah for tomorrow, and his family to come on down and help us bring in that light for Shabbat.
Page 2 and 3. Push this and click back at the same time. Now I'm going to give you a prayer book because I'd like you to read something which is rich. Just a minute, we need another secret. Someone can read verse 2 on this.
As these Shabbat candles, oh, is that not on? As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
So we all bring in the Shabbat angels and the spirit of Shabbat together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
So if you ever looked at the words of Shalom Aleichem, the song on page 26, I believe it is, on page 26, we are inviting angels of Shabbat into our midst. And we say, hello, Shalom Aleichem, welcome. Hello, angels. And then we say, come in, angels. And then we say, bless me, angels. And then we say, okay, now you can leave or you can stay, but you have blessed me. So everybody, I want you to think about what blessing you need this week from the Shabbat angels, and I'm going to ask you to share a little bit if you'd like to. What is the blessing that you need this week from the Shabbat angels? Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Leshalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni Leshalom, Malachei HaShalom.
Bless me, angels.
Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zeitchem Leshalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
I just feel blessed listening to the Cantor's voice. So was anybody thinking of a blessing that you need from the Shabbat angels this week that you would like to share? Anybody? No one needs blessings? I need a blessing of patience, calm, and peace, and maybe acceptance and not being so worried, just living in the moment. That's what I'm learning. Just bless me to be here, to be in the moment and appreciate what I have. Give me gratitude. So anyone else have need a blessing this week? Yes. Wisdom. Bless me with wisdom. Anyone else? Yes. Appreciating the blessing of family. That's beautiful. Yes. Please give me that this week. Anyone else? One more person? Yes. Spiritual and physical health. Amen. May we all be blessed with these beautiful blessings in the coming week. So now that we're blessed, we're feeling blessed, we're ready for a wedding. Lecha Dodi is really a song about a wedding between the Jewish people and the Shabbat bride. The Shabbat bride, the Kabbalists would dress in white on Friday evening, and they would go out to the fields. They were the grooms, and they would sing, "Welcome, Shabbat bride." And she's called a queen and a bride into our midst. And it's like an extra soul. Some people say the Shabbat bride is an extra soul to enjoy and savor the Shabbat. On page 20, Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hameyuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'li tehila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor habracha, merosh miked nezucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat techila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Itoreri, ki ba'orech kumi uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela.
If you can, please rise and turn around to welcome the Shabbat bride into our midst.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עמסי גאולה. בואי חלה, lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat, nekabela.
We remain standing for the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Page 26.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה. בריחו לילה מכל בחטא ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא ואימרו Amen.
We've brought in the light. We have welcomed the angels. We have danced with the bride. Now it's time to welcome God with the Baruch Hu on page 28.
Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai.
Please turn to page 31. God is in our presence, and we want to acknowledge the beauty and the miracle of creation from which he rested on Shabbat. So let's read on the top in English together. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of tide, of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ינוח עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים.
So you may have noticed or not that the Shema is right in the center of love. Before the Shema is the Ahavat Olam, which talks about God's love for us. Then we say the Shema, which we will in a minute. And then we do the V'ahavta, which is how we show our love for God. And it's very connected because the way God shows love to us is by giving us a beautiful way of life through Torah and mitzvot to uplift ourselves, to elevate our souls. And that the way we love God back is to not only try to live that kind of elevated life, but to teach it to our children. So we start now with the Ahavat Olam, which has some clapping and a lot of great music in it as well, on page 32.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה כי חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה כי את חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Please be seated. So we talked about teaching our children, and Cantor Lisa is one of those people who have fulfilled that mitzvah very well as we invite the B'nai Mitzvah up to chant the V'ahavta right now.
We're on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך וחיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך ושרתם להיות על ידיך וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Thank you so much. So I think it's interesting, I was just noticing that the very last line of the V'ahavta that we chant says, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. And I always thought it was interesting that God, even in the Ten Commandments, says, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. God self-identifies as a liberator and someone who frees the oppressed. And God could have said, I am the Lord your God who gave you the Torah, who gave you the land of Israel. But no, God's own self-identity is I am somebody who helps those who are suffering, who are oppressed. And right after that, we sing the Mi Chamocha, which is on page 40, which is the chant that the Israelites sang after they crossed the sea. And I think for B'nai Mitzvah, this idea of you're going through a passage now, just like in this Mi Chamocha, you're on one side as a kid, and now you're crossing this passage to the beginning of adulthood as a Jew. And what does it mean to be an adult as a Jew? It means now you have responsibility to yourself and to the community and to the world. It's no longer about me. It's about how you are going to contribute. That is the beginning of adulthood, and that is, I think, a secret message of the Mi Chamocha on page 40.
Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha netar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh, malechutcha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zeli anu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Yai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Amen. Even though we ask these children to make this passage to the beginning of adulthood, we don't leave them on their own. And that's why we look to God to give a shelter of peace to all of us, but especially the children, a shelter, a protection, and a guidance. Hashkivenu, page 42.
This is a beautiful piece by composer Max Helfman, who wrote a lot of his music in Los Angeles. But this is a melody for Hashkivenu that I find to be just so haunting and comforting. So I hope you enjoy it. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamitenu malkeinu l'chaim ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha v'tachnenu be'etza tova milfanecha v'hoshienu leman shemecha. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל. הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל. ועל ירושלים.
So beautiful. Thank you. So the Hasidim say that when you celebrate Shabbat, you are experiencing 1/60th of paradise, 1/60th of the world to come. So imagine how beautiful Shabbat is. 60 times is the world to come. And that is why Shabbat is so delicious in every sense of the word for the Jewish people. And that is why we sing Vishamru on Shabbat on page 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
One more time.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
I ask you now to rise and turn to page 46 as again we invite our very talented and learned B'nai Mitzvah to lead us in the Amidah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zoher Hasdei Avot V'Imaot, Umevi Gedula Lifnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Haru Moshiach Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Megain Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye hakol ata rav le'oshia. Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. Mechakel hayim vechesed. Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verafeh holim. Umatir asurim. Umechayem emunatom lishenei yafa michamocha ba'gevurot umidom elah melech memit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata l'chayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye hakol.
We now take a few moments for silent meditation or personal prayer, either using the words, beautiful words of the prayer book, or our own personal thoughts. When you're finished, you may be seated.
At the end of our Amidah, we always have this little bit of a prayer where we say, may the words that we just be offered be heard to God. However it is that you understand God's presence to be, but I think it's most important that those words be heard deep within us. Prayer is meant to change us from the inside out. So whatever it is that you just offered during our meditations, I hope that they were heard and acceptable to each one of you. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O God.
Now that we've asked God to accept our words, we ask God for blessings for those in our lives that need, blessings of healing. Physical healing, spiritual healing, emotional healing with our very beautiful healing prayer, the Misha Berach, which we're going to sing in a moment on page 253. But before we do that, if there's anyone in your life or several people who need blessings of healing, I invite you to stand up now, and when I point to you, say their names out loud so that we can all hear them.
Barbara Tracy, Beverly Gantz.
Thank you. 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 I would like to add Phil Pansky and Karen Ludwig. Misha Berach on page 253.
Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Sheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
So what I love about the fall is we read, the Torah readings are all in the book of Genesis, which are these incredible stories, these incredible narratives, starting with the creation, and then really the stories of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. And even though the Torah doesn't change, what I find is, as I change, the Torah, I read it completely differently. I was mentioning this to my Torah class that I taught this afternoon, like the book Madame Bovary. When I was 20, she commits suicide for love. I read it and I thought, oh, that's so romantic. When I was 40, I read it again and I thought, what an idiot. I mean, what? You killed yourself over that? Are you nuts? So the same with the Torah, but deeper, that you read the story and you see something different because of where we are in our lives. Let me step back so you can all see me. And this week's Parsha is called Chaye Sarah, which means the life of Sarah, and it begins with Sarah's death. It's Chaye Sarah, life, Chaim, you can hear the word Chaim in there, L'chaim, to life. And Sarah dies in the very first sentence. And so, you could say, why would the rabbis name this chapter the life of Sarah, and then she dies immediately? But before we think about that, I would ask you, what was the life of Sarah? Because we read that, and most people know something about Sarah, Abraham's wife. So I want to start with, what do you know about Sarah, the very first matriarch? Do you know anything? I mean, I think you got to know something about her. So what do you know? She what? Had a child? Late in life. Yes, she was 90 when she had her child. Yes. What else do we know about Sarah? Yes. Well, she gave him that child, though, that gave him that wife. So she was a noble woman. Sarah means princess. She was married to Abraham. Abraham got a call when he was 75 years old, and she was 65, to uproot his entire life and go to a land. He got a call from God, and he went to the land of Canaan, or Canaan in English. And there's this very traumatizing story that as soon as they got there, or pretty soon, there was a famine. Thanks God. And then they went down to Egypt. And Abraham said, you know, you're really beautiful. And the rabbis say she was always beautiful, even at 65. And I'm afraid that the Pharaoh will see that you're my wife and kill me and take you into his harem. So pretend to be my sister, and then they won't kill me. And so she doesn't answer. But Abraham says she's his sister. She's taken into the harem, and Abraham gets all these riches. And then when Pharaoh basically tries to have his way with her, all kinds of things happen, and it's not possible. And he finally finds out that she's not Abraham's sister, she's his wife. And he says, why did you tell me she was your sister? And he sends them off, and they go home. So that was a bit of a trauma. More time passes, and they don't have any children. And so Sarah says, take my servant, Hagar, my slave, and have a child with her, because I want you to have a child. So she was very giving, because they had been promised this amazing promise 7 times that your children will be like the sands of the sea and the stars in the sky. And meanwhile, they had no children. This is Hagar, who gives birth to Ishmael. And if you know anything about the Islam, claim, or they believe that they are descended through Ishmael and Abraham. They claim Abraham as their patriarch as well. But then Hagar becomes very arrogant and torments Sarah, and Sarah ends up kicking her out. Then she comes back because God sends Hagar back, and Sarah finally has Isaac, which means laughter, because when she heard at 90 she was going to have a child, as you would and I would, oh, you're going to be pregnant at 90, she laughed. She couldn't believe it. And then again, she's very disturbed by Hagar's son Ishmael, who she thinks is harming her son, and again, Hagar is exiled. All in this one chapter last week, because the culminating thing is God calls Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, that famous test. We call it the Akedah. And according to the Midrash, which is our stories and fables, and I call it the story behind the story, when Sarah heard that her husband was about to sacrifice her son, she had a heart attack and died. So now we start this next chapter with Abraham's wife dying, and he reflects on his life. And this is where I thought of it in a new way, and I was reading about this as well. Like a widower who lived, 75 years with this woman, and what does he regret? Well, he regrets, even though they were promised this land, they own no land. They are still strangers in this land. He's lived in this country for decades. So he decides he's going to buy land. Instead of waiting for God to give it to him, he goes and he buys a cave, this famous cave, the cave of Machpelah in Hebron, and there's a field around it, and he's buying it from the Hittites who live there, and they say, well, you can have it for free. And he says, no, I want to pay for it. I don't want it for free. Because Abraham realized, if I'm ever going to own land, I can't wait any longer for God to give it to me. I'm going to buy this land. I'm going to own something, at least where Sarah is buried, because this is the burial cave for Sarah, and later Abraham, and later his descendants. It's going to be ours. At least even if she didn't live on our own land, she will be buried on our own land. Then he thinks more about what Sarah did not enjoy in her life. And what does a woman want when she has a son, a grown son, more than anything? Grandchildren, a marriage. And so the next thing he does is he sends his servant back to the old country. He says, I don't want him marrying anybody in Canaan. Back to where he came from, Nahor, which is in Mesopotamia or Iraq. We would call it Iraq today. And he says to his servant, find me a girl for my son. And the servant says, well, what if she doesn't want to come? Should I bring your son back? Absolutely not. I still believe this is our legacy. This is our blessing. Go there and find a girl. And so the servant goes there and he prays to God, let me meet a gracious, kind girl that when I ask for water, she gives me water, and that she even waters my camel, somebody with kindness, with generosity. And I love the Torah. No sooner had he finished the prayer, but who came to the well? Rebecca. And Rebecca does exactly what the servant begs for and prays for. And he says, this is the girl for my master's son. And lo and behold, she's Abraham's great niece. So she's in the family. And he goes back to her house. He negotiates. He says, I'd like to take her back. And they say something interesting. Okay, we're going to betroth her, but let's ask her. This is so ancient. If she'll go back with you. And she says, yes, I'll go. And the rabbis say, from this we know you can't force a woman to marry someone she doesn't want to marry, from this Rebecca story. And they go back, and there's Isaac walking in the field, very sad, grieving his mother. And he sees her, and she sees him, and it says in Hebrew, who is that? And she falls off her camel. I always feel like she sort of falls for him, and she covers herself in her veil. She wants to be alluring, and she's going to be his bride. And then it says something so beautiful. Isaac takes her into his mother's tent, marries her, and loves her. So he marries her first and loves her after. So now Abraham has fulfilled two things that didn't happen. They own a land, and his son is married, and maybe there's going to be grandchildren. But he's supposed to populate this whole earth, or this whole land, with his descendants. And so Abraham, most of you do not know this. How many of you know this? You know he married Sarah. What? Oh, well, you were in my Torah class. Well, Cindy, share with us. What does he do? That's right. He remarries, and some Midrash say he goes back and marries Hagar, who he exiled when Sarah was alive. So he goes back to his old wife, reconciles with his son Ishmael, and has many more children. And we had learned that Ishmael had 12 tribes, just like in Judaism, from Jacob we have 12 tribes. Ishmael also had 12 tribes. So we see that Abraham fulfilled God's blessings in this chapter. But how? How did they get fulfilled? Somebody? How did Abraham fulfill them? Did he just pray? Did he just burn sacrifices? What did he do? He participated in his own blessings. He was part of the blessing. And I think what we can learn today is we can't sit around and wait for miracles. We can't sit around and wait for blessings. We can pray, we can ask, but sometimes what we get from God is the courage, the strength, the inspiration to take action. And even with Avraham, we see that he, after waiting really about 60 years, he finally realized I have to be part of this as well. And this is something we can take with us today. So in conclusion, I hope that you will be part of the blessings that you want for yourselves, the joy, the happiness, that blessing of health, the blessing of long life, whatever we have to participate. And may it be so for all of us. Shabbat Shalom. So just before we conclude with the Aleinu and the Kaddish, I really want to encourage everyone. We've been advertising it, that Bernard Henri Levy, he was the most famous public philosopher in the world, who is Jewish, who lives in France, who's coming to Wilshire Boulevard Temple on Sunday. And you can hear him talk about his new book. He is fascinating. He is world famous. And 3 years ago, we did have him on another topic, but he requested to come to Wilshire Boulevard Temple. And so I really encourage you, you can sign up on the website. It's at 4 o'clock on Sunday over at the Glazer campus. There's no traffic on Sunday. There's lots of parking. It's like after Elie Wiesel, I feel like it's Bernard Henri Levy. I never got to hear Elie Wiesel in person. I think, if you have an opportunity to hear this man in person, I did take my daughter to hear Gloria Steinem because I thought that was really important. There are some people you just should hear in your lifetime, and he is one of them. And I hope you'll think about joining us. So we're going to conclude with the Aleinu on page 282. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Just a quick invitation. After we conclude the services, the B'nai Mitzvah families, we invite you to come up for Kiddush and Motzi. And outside there will be Kiddush and Challah for everyone as you leave. Now we take a moment to remember those who are no longer with us, those who have passed away, as we prepare for Kaddish. It is our tradition that those who are observing the first 30 days of mourning to please rise. And those who are observing a yort site also to please rise. Just want to make sure I have. We begin with those who passed away during the last 30 days during Shloshim. Miriam Betzalel, Mona Brandler, June Clayman, Deborah Falcon, Ruth Friedman, Alan Gardner, Rona Goldstein, Mimi Lieber, John McNichol, Nicole Neiman, Michael Plattis, Michael Ravkin, Miriam Sarachik, Ron Solomons, Ronnie Stabler, Stephen Weiner, Deborah Werner. We also remember those whose yortzites, the anniversaries of their deaths, occurred during this past week. Morris Abrams, Paula Almond, Arlen Howard Andelson, Matt Barish, Bernard Bash, Teresa Ruth Bell, Jean Bennett, Benjamin Block, Richard Block, Sarah Blum, Ruth Channon, Bernard Chapman, Laura Cohn, Irving Cohn, Anna Lee Dreyer, Philip Engel, Harry Ensler, Cynthia Appel, Stephen Fine, Kenneth Flesh, Mark Fox, Irving Gerstein, Lisa Goldberg, Sharon Goldenberg, Bernard Good, Ira Gottfried, Anne Greenwald Hale, Albert Gross, May Eisenberg, Simon Jacobs, Shirley Jacobson, Hinda Kalkstein, Herbert Kahn, Harry Kaplan, Estelle Esther Katz, Rose Katz, Sarah Porton Keith, Bertha Kunik Kleinman, Gerald Koppelson, Bridget Krausen, Sarah Kurtzman, Lucille Landau, David Keene Levitt, Jerome Leichtman, Francis Levy, Ida Lieberman, Samantha Mack, Robert Craig Markowitz, Esther Medina, Barbara Black Miller, Beverly Mitchell, Helen Mittler, Jack Moyer, Carol Newstaff, Ellen Parker, Sherman Paisner, Harold Perliter, Bernard Peel, Adele Pollock, Joseph Reams, Ira Ressler, Louise Rhodes, Mildred Rodstein, Erwin Rosenblum, Barbara Rowan, Ethel Rubin, Mary Schultz Blitzer, Harriet Frances Schwartz, Jean Shapiro, Kate Schwartzman Shapiro, Ethel Sherman, Edna Stein, Aileen Sweet, Richard Talman, Samuel Taub, Joanne Jocelyn Troy, Julius Tyfield, Robert Stephen Wegg, Renee White, Rita Yates, Augusta Zipperman. Are there any other names to add? Thank you. We also remember those who gave their lives defending the United States of America and the State of Israel, and those who lost their lives in senseless violence or terrorism or through disease. We take them all as our own. We also remember those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. Please rise and turn to page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'gala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'mei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei l'kudashah brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran v'yalma, v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shabbat shalom. Please stay standing as we call up Miles and his family, Shayna and her family, to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi. We're on page 5.
Wait, hold up your cups.
We raise our glasses. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho ve'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'ase v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat L'chaim. Take a sip.
I invite the families to uncover the challah. And Everybody in the family hold the challah or touch the challah or touch someone touching the challah.
And we say the blessing, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'tei avon, Shabbat shalom, everyone. Tear
Okay,
the
families,
challah.
tear the challah and
You gotta
open
tear
and
the
eat
challah.
it.
There you go.
And we invite everybody. There's challah outside and some little grape juice. Someday we'll all be able to touch the same challah.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Have a beautiful week.